They told us worth had to be earned the grueling way, with draft day grins, backhanded compliments from scouts, and years of muted silence. They told us black quarterbacks had to bide their time. They told us the right way to win was to kneel quietly, to blend into a system never designed for us to lead, only to survive. But Shedeur Sanders just obliterated that myth, and he did it without taking a single snap. Let's be unmistakably clear. A fifth-round pick just generated $250 million in jersey revenue. Sit with that. He's not a Heisman winner, not a Super Bowl MVP. He's a young man they dismissed as unready, a coach's son they claim was coasting on legacy, a player whose draft stock slid, not due to a lack of skill, but because he refused to fake humility for the cameras. And now he's pulled in $15 million in personal commission before even reporting to camp. That's more than what several starting QBs are making this year. The same critics who questioned his draft position are now scrambling to revise the script, because what Shedeur just accomplished wasn't supposed to be possible. Not this bold, not this unapologetically black. This isn't just a headline, it's a cultural tremor, a tectonic shift in the narrative. It's what happens when black excellence stops begging for approval and builds its own platform. Shedeur didn't wait for the NFL to crown him. He arrived already wearing royalty, and the fact that it makes the establishment uneasy, that's the entire point. This isn't just football, this is liberation in cleats. And if this is merely the opening act, the league better fasten its chin strap, because the playbook just got torched. Let's stop sugarcoating it. What happened to Shedeur on draft day wasn't just a fall. It was theft in broad daylight. They tried to strip him of his worth, labeled him a project, shoved him to day 3 like he hadn't already diced up Power 5 defenses, like he hadn't already demonstrated the poise, precision, and leadership NFL execs claim to salivate over, just not when it looks like this, not this loud, not this black, because the moment he showed up branded, composed, and fearlessly authentic, he stopped being a prospect and became a threat to their comfort, to their model, to their formula. And still, despite the slights, despite the smears, despite the dismissal, Shedeur flipped the narrative with one number, $250 million. That's what his jersey raked in before a single preseason rep, $15 million in his pocket before a depth chart was even finalized. Let's put that in context. That's more than what some Pro Bowl quarterbacks are earning this season. That's not hype, that's economics, that's power, that's leverage. And it didn't come from a polished corporate campaign. It came from the streets, from the people who see themselves in Shedeur, not just as a quarterback, but as a reflection, a statement, a symbol. This wave isn't about the Browns. These fans aren't just buying a jersey, they're buying belief. They're backing a man who embodies confidence, culture, and command. This generation's done waiting for permission, done waiting for representation to trickle from the top down. Shedeur didn't ask for a seat at their table. He built his own out of gold. And now the whole damn league wants in. And understand this isn't the system embracing him. This is the people forcing the system to open its eyes. Because true value has never been confined to a draft slot or a 40-yard dash. And Shedeur Sanders just made that fact undeniable. They laughed when the Browns dropped his jersey before training camp, mocked it as a gimmick, scoffed that he hadn't earned it, that he hadn't thrown an NFL pass. But while the old guard rolled their eyes, the people moved. Not just moved, they flooded the site, crashed it, treated it like a Jordan release, not a rookie announcement. Within hours, his jersey was number 1. By day 3, it outsold the top-selling rookie jerseys from the past 3 years combined. That's not hype, that's hunger, a hunger that's been simmering in silence, now unleashed. Because what the NFL missed was this: the demand was never about a team. It was always about the man. Fans weren't waiting for ESPN to give a green light. They were waiting for a link. And when it went live, it was a stampede, a digital revolt against everything Shedeur wasn't supposed to be. You don't outsell entire franchises off nepotism. You don't manufacture this level of resonance through PR campaigns. You do it because the people see you, they feel you, they want to ride with what you represent. If you've made it this far in the video, drop a comment below. I've made it this far. You'll be entered to win a Shedeur Sanders jersey on August 21st, 2025. Subscribe. Like this video. Stay locked in. More info coming soon. This is the Huddle HQ. And now let's take it deeper. And if you don't conform, you're branded arrogant, immature, and a distraction. That's the tired script. And Shedeur Sanders tore it in half, grinned at the cameras, and declared, "I'm still going to shine." He wears his chains and his confidence with equal ease. He quotes scripture in one breath and rocks Dior in the next. He's not confused about who he is, and he's certainly not apologizing for it. That unfiltered authenticity, it's magnetic. It's why an entire generation of fans fell in love with him long before he ever wore an NFL jersey, especially young black men who've never seen someone who looks like them, talks like them, and moves like them be celebrated for it instead of condemned. That's why this story transcends sports. This is about identity, about image, ownership, and narrative reclamation. Shedeur isn't just moving merchandise, he's moving mindsets. He's selling confidence, clarity, culture, and his message to black youth across the country is crystal clear. You don't need to dilute your essence to be embraced. You don't need to shrink to be respected. Be sharp, be bold, be you, and make the world catch up. And that's what terrifies the system, because the last thing the machine wants is for young black athletes to understand their power before a contract is handed out. But Shedeur's value is now undeniable, and he hasn't even taken a single NFL snap. They couldn't ignore his jersey numbers, couldn't ignore the flood of fans lining up to rep number 12 in cities that don't even care about the Browns. So they did what they always do when a young black man gets too successful, too bold, too free. They tried to contain it, to rebrand it, to water it down. He's just a brand guy, they scoffed. Let's see him prove it on the field. He hasn't earned anything. And there it was, the quiet part said out loud. Because when a white rookie sells gear, it's marketability. When a white quarterback gets buzz, it's high potential. But when Shedeur Sanders, composed, strategic, and built like a CEO, pulls in $250 million in jersey sales before a single snap, now it's too much too soon. Now it's dangerous. What they really mean is he got too powerful without our permission. This isn't new. Black quarterbacks who lead with conviction have always been targeted. Kaepernick, Lamar, Cam, scrutinized for how they lead, how they speak, how they celebrate, how they simply exist. But Shedeur, he didn't just break the mold, he refused to enter it. He knew from day one, if he didn't script his story, someone else would, and they'd tell it wrong. So he picked up the pen, grabbed the camera, took the mic, and said, "I've got it from here." But he didn't storm in yelling. He entered like a tactician, polished, calculated, calm, no gimmicks, no clout chasing, just quiet certainty, just unshakable presence, just a level of self-assurance that didn't need anyone's approval to be real. What they failed to understand is this: Shedeur's audience was already assembled before the NFL called. He didn't need ESPN to amplify his voice. He didn't need draft boards to validate his game. He didn't need the league's marketing machine to make him a brand. The people were already listening, and that's what has the establishment sweating, because when the media loses control of the story, power shifts. And in the case of Shedeur Sanders, that shift is earth-shattering. Don't be fooled by the silence. Behind the curtain, the NFL is scrambling. This wasn't supposed to happen. A fifth rounder wasn't supposed to dominate headlines, wasn't supposed to outsell first rounders, wasn't supposed to report to camp with a built-in empire, a loyal army, and the market power of a Nike cornerstone athlete, but he did. And the NFL has no playbook for that. The Cleveland Browns PR team had to pivot months early. Before he even threw a pass, the floodgates opened. Interviews, sponsorships, influencers, media waves. They had to rewire everything. Marketing schedules, digital departments, inventory chains, all for a fifth round project. This isn't routine. It's a revolution. And it's not just Cleveland adapting, and executives around the league are huddled in closed door meetings trying to decode what just hit them. And here's the harsh reality. You can't coach charisma. You can't manufacture authenticity. You can't fake cultural relevance. Franchises are now, you're not just a player, you're a revenue engine. And here's what makes Shedeur Sanders' model so revolutionary. It's built on sovereignty. He didn't sell out to corporate overlords. He didn't hand his image over to some glossy agency to be rinsed, diluted, and sold back to him. He owned the mic. He told his story in his voice from day one. And the people, they showed up loudly. That's terrifying to a league still trapped in the illusion that rookies arrive as blank slates, eager to be molded, muted, and managed. But Shedeur showed up fully formed, fully branded, fully conscious of his influence. And now the league is waking up to the truth. The future doesn't belong to the kids you can coach into stardom. It belongs to the one who walks in already glowing like one. Let's set the record straight. This isn't just about Ohio. In fact, half the people rocking that number 12 couldn't point to Cleveland on a map. And they don't need to, because this isn't about team loyalty. This is about personal allegiance. From Brooklyn to Birmingham, Oakland to Orlando, fans don't care about Brown stats. They care about why they ride with Shedeur. You see it on TikTok, kids mimicking his pregame strut. You hear it in barbershops, men discussing how he carries himself like he's been there. You feel it in high school locker rooms, young QBs adjusting their sleeves, arching their brows, channeling that Sanders swagger. This isn't a fan base. This is a cultural uprising. It's emotional, generational, transformational. Shedeur's influence operates on a frequency the NFL doesn't even track. It's not just in jersey sales. It's not just in highlights. It's in how he makes people feel, especially black fans. Fans who've spent decades watching quarterbacks get their confidence labeled cockiness, their leadership questioned, their light dimmed. But Shedeur is different. He walks with clarity, speaks with conviction, and most importantly, he refuses to dim his light to make the room more comfortable. The NFL didn't see this coming because its infrastructure is built on franchise loyalty and city allegiance. But Shedeur is the franchise, and the people didn't need playoff wins or team banners to invest. They just needed someone who reflected them, someone who didn't fold under pressure, someone who could wear diamonds and quote scripture in the same sentence and make it look effortless. Now, the Browns are riding a tidal wave they didn't create. Their social metrics are surging, their national relevance skyrocketing, but the engine behind it isn't the dog pound. It's the Shedeur effect, and the league is scrambling, trying to bottle the results while pretending not to see why it happened in the first place. For decades, the NFL pushed one story: team first, logo sacred, player replaceable. But Shedeur Sanders just cracked that narrative so hard, the entire foundation is quaking. And here's the uncomfortable truth: for the old guard, they can't stop it. The player first era is here, and Shedeur isn't just a passenger. He's the prototype. Look at the NBA, LeBron, Steph, Giannis. They didn't just build teams. They built empires by owning their image, telling their stories, becoming movements. Fans didn't just cheer for uniforms. They followed faces. But the NFL, they've dragged their cleats in the mud, clinging to the idea that helmets matter more than humans. Shedeur didn't ask to rewrite the script. He just did. And let's be real, if he were a top 10 pick, they'd be celebrating this. ESPN would air primetime features, executives would send congratulatory emails, but because he came through the side door, because he didn't perform fake humility, because he had the audacity to be excellent, confident, and black, they panicked. They couldn't contain it. They couldn't spin it. They couldn't look away from the $250 million elephant in the room. Because what do you do when a fifth rounder doesn't just outperform expectations? He incinerates the entire playbook. You evolve or you get left behind. The next generation of athletes is watching, and so are the fans. They're not interested in the old rules. They want voice, they want vision, they want value, not just in stats, but in story. And Shedeur Sanders, he is the story. This was never about a jersey. This was about a young black quarterback who refused to shrink, refused to wait for permission, and walked into the most powerful league in the world like he owned the blueprint. He didn't wait for legacy. He walked in with it. He didn't beg for spotlight. He radiated it. He didn't follow the old model. He built his own. That $250 million in jersey sales, that's not hype. That's not luck. That's a warning shot. That's generations of silenced voices finally roaring. Not this time. Because this isn't just about wearing a number. It's about becoming the movement. Now, let me break this down for everyone. Because this right here, it's outrageous. Let's not sugarcoat it. It all started with a single question, one sentence from Mary Kay Cabot, and the internet erupted. She didn't ask about Shedeur Sanders' development during minicamp. She wasn't interested in how he was adjusting to the Browns' offensive system. Nope. She looked him square in the eyes and asked about his father's health. Dillon Sanders, a deeply personal, emotionally charged, and completely irrelevant topic, especially when the spotlight was supposed to be on Shedeur's NFL debut. And when it comes to Mary Kay, I genuinely don't understand how someone with such a track record of tone-deaf behavior holds a job with a professional media organization. Forget X's and O's. This crossed a line. The backlash was immediate. And this wasn't just Twitter noise. It came from fans, veterans, respected analysts. Everyone was saying the same thing. This was unacceptable, but here's the kicker. That question wasn't just a moment of poor judgment, it was a trigger, a flashpoint that reignited years of frustration over how the media routinely treats young, confident black quarterbacks, especially when they refuse to play into some sanitized, pre-approved mold of what humble and grateful is supposed to look like. Mary Kay, seriously, cut the nonsense. Other rookie QBs, they're asked about offensive rhythm, competition, playbook comprehension, football questions. But Shedeur, he gets blindsided with an emotional grenade. And when he didn't bite, when he calmly, respectfully pivoted back to football, you could feel the irritation. Like the media didn't get the reaction they wanted. Like they couldn't manipulate the narrative, because that's what this really boils down to, control. Let's not forget, Mary Kay Cabot isn't just another reporter. She's a long-standing media figure in Cleveland. Her headlines shape narratives. And she's been called out before, not just for aggressive reporting, but for what she chooses to spotlight. Speeding tickets become headline news. A missed practice rep turns into a bad attitude headline. And somehow, almost always, it's the black quarterbacks under her microscope. This isn't just a bad moment. It's a pattern, a blueprint. Shedeur's being targeted, and that's not an exaggeration. It's connecting the dots. Remember when Cam Newton was criticized for smiling too much, or Lamar Jackson mocked for not being media polished enough? Now Shedeur's cocky because he wears designer watches and doesn't flinch when hit with a passive-aggressive question. Let's be honest. If you're sick of watching confident black athletes get dismantled for simply embracing their excellence, hit that subscribe button. We're here to expose it, because this is the same tired script recycled over and over again. A young black quarterback walks in with poise and pride, and suddenly the media feels the need to break him, label him, humble him, strip the shine off his image. But this time, it backfired. Shedeur didn't lash out. He didn't stumble. He didn't even seem rattled. He responded with poise, the way Dillon raised him to. And that's what really caught the haters off guard. They expected immaturity. They got composure. They expected arrogance. They got professionalism. And the internet saw everything. But the media, this is nasty work, man. One misstep after another. Let's not pretend this is new either. Mary Kay's name has trended for all the wrong reasons before, but this hit different because it wasn't just about journalism. It was about respect, about boundaries, and most importantly, about how mainstream media still struggles to embrace unapologetically confident black athletes unless they follow a very specific set of rules, their rules. They're fixated on whether he'll sign that contract, whether he'll report to camp, but let's call this what it is. You can say it's just sports. You can say it's just one reporter, but the energy doesn't lie when fans across the country call out coded bias. when former players point to double standards, and when respected voices like Ryan Clark say enough, you better believe it's real. You see, this goes far beyond one awkward press exchange. This is about power dynamics, who gets to ask the questions and who's expected to sit there and smile through them. How do you feel you played? Every day there's room to evolve in every facet of my game. Now let's address what the mainstream media refuses to acknowledge: the racialized playbook, that invisible, time-worn script running silently through NFL history. You know, the one where confident black quarterbacks get branded as cocky, arrogant, and self-absorbed. But when a white quarterback flexes, roars, and trash talks, he's hailed as a fiery competitor, a natural-born leader. Same conduct, radically different headlines every single time. I just want to lead, support my team, and be the best version of myself on the field. And then enter Shedeur Sanders, polished, composed, unapologetically stylish, the kind of self-assured presence his father, Dillon Primetime Sanders, made iconic. He walks into a press room with that same legendary confidence. And suddenly the room shifts. Now his watch is too flashy, his answers are too smug, and his refusal to play media games, that's not seen as poise, it's spun as attitude. Let's call it what it is, a calculated reframe. Ryan Clark, former NFL standout and ESPN analyst, didn't hesitate. He peeled back the coded language and called it out loud and clear. It's about race, about painting Shedeur as difficult, arrogant, a problem, before he's even taken a pro snap. And the truth, he's absolutely right. This isn't new. It's a recycled tactic. It's the same subtle slander that's been used to deflate confident black quarterbacks for generations. And it's worked. At least it used to, because today's fans, they aren't blind sheep. They don't just swallow whatever narrative is fed to them on ESPN or a headline crawl. They break it down, they clip it, comment, repost, call it out. They remember what they did to Cam Newton for smiling too wide, what they said about Lamar Jackson for speaking too casually, how Jameis Winston got ridiculed for being expressive. They've seen the pattern and they won't let it repeat with Shedeur. But let's zoom out to the biggest red flag of all, draft day. Shedeur Sanders, with elite production, high-level leadership, NIL dominance, and pristine media presence, fell to the 5th round. Let that sink in. A projected late second rounder at worst, dropped like a rock. And after a historic season at Colorado, the questions started flying. What changed? Was it the Deion connection? Was it the swagger? Or was it something deeper, more sinister, something they'd never say out loud but acted on with precision? Because days later, a $100 million lawsuit was filed against the NFL, alleging racial discrimination and a coordinated campaign to torpedo Sanders' draft stock. And what did the mainstream media do? Crickets. The silence was deafening. Meanwhile, whispers of blackballing grew louder. Insiders said he rubbed people the wrong way. They weren't ready for another prime time in the league. Even the phrase Kaepernick energy began circulating, not because Shedeur protested, not because he knelt, but because, like Colin, he represented independence, defiance, control over his image, and that terrified them. But Shedeur, he's not playing by their rules, and neither are the fans. He's ahead of the curve, hungry to learn, willing to grow. Let's be clear that if anyone had the right to snap back at Mary Kay Cabot for that ridiculous question during his very first media appearance as a Cleveland Brown, it was Shedeur. This moment should have been about opportunity, about a new chapter, about football. Instead, it turned into a trap. And what did he do? He leaned back in his chair, probably with that signature iced out watch sparkling under the lights, and said, "I'm here to talk football." No anger, no sarcasm, no rolled eyes, just icy composure, a masterclass in restraint. He gave the media nothing to twist. And that's why the internet said it loud. This kid is different. They told us true worth had to be earned through struggle, draft day grins, fleeting scout praise, and years of being silenced. They told us black quarterbacks had to bide their time. They insisted the proper path to success meant staying quiet, blending in, and showing gratitude for crumbs in a league that was never architected for us to lead. But Shedeur Sanders shattered that illusion without taking a single NFL snap. Let's spell this out clearly. A 5th round pick just generated $250 million in jersey sales.